Hey guys, what the hell is up? I know, it's been a long time, and I know this is pretty late when you're listening to this. Typically, my episodes have been released usually on Friday mornings. With any luck, this will be released Sunday night, so almost 3 full days late. But, hey, better late than never, because last week there wasn't an episode because, I was in the great state of Maine, and I didn't think being in Maine would mess up my recording schedule, but we stayed a day longer than we had originally planned, and I just didn't have the time. Story of my life. But I gotta be real with you guys for a sec here. This is the third time I've tried to record this episode. I recorded 10 minutes of one on Thursday night, a couple nights ago, and what happened? I was having computer problems. My computer was running slow as molasses. So I got rid of it. It was just bad quality. And then I used my wife's laptop, which still gave me a few problems early on, but I recorded a good 40 minutes, and I got rid of that too because it wasn't good. It was rambling. It was very, very unfocused. Even for me, it was very, very unfocused. So it's Saturday night, and I'm doing it again. Attempt number 3. I actually have an idea of what I want to talk about this time, which was part of the problem when I tried to record this a few days ago. So my plan is to hopefully record this right now, Saturday night, record my video that I always, accompany the podcast with on YouTube, also tonight, get everything edited, and then have it up tomorrow night by 9, 10 o'clock. I know it's very late, but if it goes up tomorrow, well, regardless of when it goes up, episode 16 proper will still be released next week, and maybe something else too, if I can find any goddamn time to do anything. This is episode 15, which is pretty cool because that is one episode more than the normal Soulscast that I was a part of. So, we're going strong. I've been doing this for over 3 months. Except for last week, I've released one podcast a week for 15 weeks now. Well, I started at episode 2, and then, so it's been 13 straight weeks, I guess. That's still over 3 months. That's pretty damn good, and we are going to keep going. Thank you all for staying with me if you have, if anyone listens. I know a couple people do, maybe. I know it sucks not having an episode last week. I really wanted one, but what are you going to do? I'm gonna kind of think of these early recordings as like a TV show. Think of a show that's in its first season where people said, well, it's rough around the edges. You can see glimmers of the greatness that would happen later, but season 1 is not the best. So when we're at like episode 200, if it's possible to have 200 episodes talking about Dark Souls, I'm sure it is. People will be like, oh, episode 200. 7 million views, and we'll look back at episode 15 and like, ugh, well, that one wasn't great, but that's okay. Think of The Simpsons, season 1. It's good. It's not great. It's very rough around the edges, not great animation. Doesn't hit hard with the jokes, but it's got good stories. It has good characterization. It plants seeds, and I'm gonna say we're planting seeds here. And yes, I do anticipate 7 million listeners when we get up to episode 200, so mark my words. Okay, let's get into it. Who am I? My name is Shane. You know that. You can find me on some social media, the first of which is Instagram. Calamete is my name. Kalameet. And you can also find me on Twitter. I don't tweet a whole lot. I usually just retweet funny things. My ratio of me tweeting personally compared to retweeting is like 50-1. But if I had more followers that actually interacted with me, I would talk more. But what was I saying? Twitter. Calamete. K-A-1-A-M-E-E-T. So replace the L with a 1. And finally, my YouTube, which is where you're most likely listening to this. The name is VGBosses247. This is the last week I'm going to spell this out because it's pretty self-explanatory. It's the letters VG and then the word bosses space 24/7. I don't know if YouTube is case sensitive, but the V, G, and B are all uppercase. I've been uploading boss battles. I upload the podcast episodes. I uploaded a special WWE video that I did with my very good and oldest friend Tim. We did that last week. That's kind of like going back to the TV analogy. That's kind of our pilot episode of our channel that we're going to be starting at some point in the next few weeks, once we can hammer out a schedule, because we're both pretty busy. I don't want to hype it up too much, but it's going to be taking YouTube by storm. So just stay tuned for that. Now, what video games have I been playing recently? That's a great question. Dark Souls 3 is basically the answer to that. And we will be talking about Dark Souls 3 today, don't you worry. But besides Dark Souls 3, I did buy WWE 2K16, I think it was last week, with my friend Tim, because we recorded it. I played that for like an hour and a half, maybe a little more. It's a lot of fun. I haven't gotten too far. I'm playing my career mode. I created a ridiculous looking character. So, I would like to keep playing it, but I don't have any time. I'm going to stop saying that, because it's getting redundant. I also did just buy Doom yesterday, the newest Doom game. I've been a big fan of Doom for a while, since a friend gave me the disc for the PlayStation, the long box. You know, like PlayStation games used to come in the long boxes. He had an extra disc of Doom lying around, so he gave it to me. This was I was probably in middle school, so a very long time ago. And since he gave me that, I've loved the Doom series. And I bought it yesterday. I installed it. I haven't touched it. I probably won't even play it until maybe Monday or Tuesday night. My wife wants to watch and play it with me, so I can't play it without her, because it was almost her idea to buy it. My wife is pretty awesome. I gotta have her back on the podcast one of these days. That was episode 7, if you guys are curious. I called it An Outsider's Perspective. It was a lot of fun. Go check it out. I think that's everything I've been playing, and games that I've bought that I haven't been playing. Let's get into the heart of the issue, the real meat of the matter, I guess. Get down to brass taxes. I'm going to talk about Dark Souls 3 today, and I'm going to... I know it's kind of early, and I haven't even beaten the game yet. I got to be at least 3/4 of the way through, but I'm going to go back to episode 11, which just came out, I don't know, a month ago. And episode 11 was My Hopes and Fears for Dark Souls 3. I am going to do I don't think rebuttal is the right word. I'm going to look at everything I wrote, and I'm going to respond to it. Because I have 44 hours into the game, and I don't know everything. I think I can say pretty well how the game does. So... compared to like the things I've been writing. And I'm just going to look at my notes, and I'm just going to basically run down everything that I talked about before and see, where it lands. So I made a bullet list of the stuff that I knew about Dark Souls 3 going into it. I guess I can just kind of talk about that. I had written that there's lots of content, and I'll say that there's a pretty good amount of content. I found one optional area so far, which was the Smoldering Lake, which was not a huge area, but it had a boss, and it had a bunch of treasures and a bunch of enemies. I know there's a couple other optional areas. I know there's optional bosses. I know there's a good amount of side, like NPC quests, and I have not found a single one. I haven't really been looking. I've just been playing and trying to do it as blind as possible. I wrote down amazing combat, and that is certainly true. The combat in the game is very fluid. It has a Bloodborne feel, but it's different because you have a much bigger arsenal of weapons, and they're pretty diverse. Not that the Bloodborne weapons weren't diverse, but So the combat is amazing. I think the rolling feels really good. Swinging weapons. I've been using kind of slow weapons, and everything seems good. Dark Souls 2 had some hitbox issues where you could be like fighting the Pursuer. He had an attack where he would bring his sword back, and he would charge it up blue and then stab it forward. And if you were in the way of that, he would stab you and then pick you up and slam you on the ground. is a devastating attack. Now, it was a straight ahead attack, but if you were on the left or right of him when he did that, you would just get like magnetized to a sword and he'd hit you anyway. And there was a lot of that really quirky, like bad hitbox detection in Dark Souls 2. I haven't seen any of that in this game so far, so I think they definitely fixed that, so I'm happy about that. I also wrote about weapon arts, or weapon skills, I don't remember what they call them actually. I've been using the same type of weapon basically all game, so my weapon arts have been war cries, which gives me a bit of a, I believe, an attack buff, and some of them give me an extra R2 attack, like an extra strong attack. And I use them a little bit. They don't seem to be, at least the ones I've been using, they don't seem to be hugely important right now. But just reading like item descriptions and seeing loading screen things, it seems like there's some pretty cool ones. I really need to experiment, but I want to get through the game first before I start experimenting and all that kind of stuff. Seems to tie back into the original Dark Souls. Boy, does it ever. I might just leave that there. And that might be like its own episode, Dark Souls 3 and how it ties into Dark Souls. But yes, it does quite a bit. And then I wrote about bosses, the Dancer of the Frigid Valley, which they renamed Dancer of the Boreal Valley, and then Vort of the Boreal Valley. That's boring. I had read in the IGN review that came out like a day or two before the game came out that there were some frame rate problems. I will say I have not seen any frame rate problems in this game so far. And I'm pretty impressed with that. They could still exist. Maybe I just got lucky and haven't seen them. There's certainly nothing like Blighttown, or nothing like the Sith battle where it slows down to like 10 frames per second or something silly like that. I don't know. I think the frame rate's great. I'm not one of those guys that's like really big on frame rate. Oh, is it 30 frames per second, 60 frames? I don't know. I don't care. The game looks good. It plays good. It doesn't stutter. That's all I care about. The Ashen Estus flasks are something that I have not used once. Yeah, I have not used them once. They refill your weapon arts thing, and I think they refill the bar that if you use magic, which I don't use magic and I don't use my weapon arts very much, so meh. And then it takes place in the land of Lothric, which it certainly does. Not a whole lot to say about that. It takes place in the land of Lothric. However, there are Dark Souls areas that you go to, like original Dark Souls areas. In Orlando, anyone? Okay. The IGN review notes. I'll go over those quickly. They gave it a 9.5 out of 10, which, I mean, I'm not done with the game, but I think that's pretty good. And they say the only negatives were the frame rate drops, which again I haven't seen, and some lackluster bosses. There's been a couple bosses that have been a little lackluster. The High Lord Walner, which was a battle I was very, very excited about, was super easy. It reminded me a little bit of like a God of War battle, where he has specific weak points that you have to attack. In Walner's case, he has like these giant jewels, not jewels, like giant bracelets, because he's a gigantic skeleton. If you attack him, you do like 200 damage, but if you destroy the bracelets, it does like 5,000 damage. And that's the same with Yorm the Giant, who you fight much later on, who, if you find a special sword in his room, it's the Storm Ruler. It's the Storm Ruler sword. And funny enough, the weapon skill, whatever the hell it's called, the skill is called Storm King. So that's pretty funny. Great Demon Souls callback. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. If you attack Yorm normally, you do like, I was doing like 250 damage, but if you use the Storm Ruler sword and use like the weapon skill to hit him with a giant like gust of wind, it takes like 5,000 damage off. And so it makes him very, very, very easy. And there's one or two other bosses that have like weak points that if you hit them, it does huge damage, which kind of reminds me of some bosses in Bloodborne a little bit, like the Chalice Dungeon, the Undead Giant. He has like tumors that if you hit him, it does massive damage. Not as much damage as these things do in Dark Souls 3, but it's kind of similar. There are a lot of there's lots of areas to explore, and there are some retreads. Like there's a castle area, which I'm actually in right now. There's a catacombs area. There's a poison swamp area. I know the next area I have to go to is a place called the Grand Archives, so that's probably something similar to the Duke's Archives. You do go to Anne Orlando, which is fucking awesome. There's like an undead settlement area, which is, you know, like the undead burg and all that. So a lot of retreads, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I will say also the Poison Swamp is a much better Poison Swamp area than most of the other games. It's big. It's the poison seems to do absolutely nothing in this game. I was poisoned throughout that entire area, and I never used an antidote, and it looks like it didn't take off any health at all. There's lots of secrets, obviously, and the illusory walls where you attack them and they disappear, they're back. I find that a lot of people leave messages in front of walls that say, like, illusion or illusory wall, and it's not. They're just being assholes. For every 5 messages on the ground that say there's an illusory wall, like, one of them is true. So I haven't found a whole lot, but I found a couple pretty good ones. Finally, I had wrote, well, IGN had written, and I also reiterated, there's great enemy design and great boss design, and that's certainly true. There's a couple enemies in this game that I would put among the most terrifying in the series, and that I would put amongst the most, like, just the most evil. Maybe not evil's probably not the right word. They go back to monster design, and there's great monsters. Okay, now let's get down to my stuff that I wrote. I wrote hopes and fears. And I'm just going to go down the list, and I'm going to say how true these things are with my 44 hours into the game so far. I don't know how much my opinions on these things will change when I get to the end of the game, and then when I play through a New Game Plus and keep playing and playing. I plan on getting the Platinum, and I think there might be 3 endings to the game, so I probably have to play through at least 3 times. So I will be playing this game for a long time. And if my opinions change drastically, maybe I'll do another episode where, oh, I have 100 hours into the game, now here's what I think. After that, this is probably pretty redundant to do a 4th. Oh, I have 200 hours, here's what I think. Okay. We're doing good. This is already way better than the episode that I recorded that I deleted. That episode was garbage. I'm very glad it's not going to get released. Alright, guys. My hopes as of, I don't know, 5 weeks ago. It's as engrossing and engaging as the previous games. I can say absolutely it is. At first, when I first played, I actually wasn't as engrossed and engaged as I usually am. Part of it was I was having a very difficult time because I was in like a funk of Souls. I had been playing the original Dark Souls, and I was having a hell of a hard time with that, and my hard time with that carried over into Dark Souls 3. But I'm rolling pretty good now. I've been beating bosses not easily. There's been some hard ones. The hard ones are hard, and all the rest of them are pretty easy. I have not beat any boss in my first try, but no boss has taken me more than like probably 12 or 15 tries. Aldrich was pretty hard. The Abyss Watchers were pretty hard. Pontiff Sullivan was probably the hardest in the game so far. And then I'll say Crystal Sage was hard. Those are the 4 that round out the hard ones. I think I've fought 7 or 8 more. And they've ranged in difficulty from easy to a little hard. Like the Dancer of the Boreal Valley only took me like 4 or 5 tries, but that was pretty hard. So I'm very engrossed. I want to know everything about this game. I wrote lots of weapons and armor, and there's a lot of weapons and armor. There's lots of different categories. I was going through the strategy guide. I don't remember if I mentioned in one of the previous episodes. I bought the strategy guide, the Prima strategy guide, a couple weeks ago. I'm trying not to look at it because I want to go through the first time blind. But I was just looking through the weapons and stuff, and there's a lot of weapons. Probably more than other games, or at least as much as other games. And there's long swords, bastard swords, there's clubs, that kind of stuff, which is in every game. But there's a lot of like unique ones. And the boss weapons, I'm actually using a boss weapon right now, which is pretty strange because I generally don't. When I did my Demon Souls boss weapon episode, which was episode 10, episode 9, something like that, I remember saying I don't typically use the boss weapons because they're not great. I'm using Yorm's Great Machete, and it kicks ass. I have it upgraded to +2. I think it already does more damage than my like heavy large club +7, which is pretty wild. Okay, great varied bosses was another hope of mine, and that has definitely come true. The bosses are awesome in this game. There's some knights. Again, the Abyss Watchers were knights. The first guy, Gundyr, was a knight. Pontiff Sullivan isn't a knight, but he's a humanoid. I guess there's been kind of a lot of humanoids, but they're different. They're varied. They're interesting. A lot of the humanoid bosses in Dark Souls 2, they just got repetitive and boring. But there's great monsters too. Like the Curse Rotted Greatwood is one of the strangest bosses in the whole series. High Lord Walner, again, is very, very, very cool. I like the Deacons of the Deep battle, even though it's just a bunch of people. It's an interesting battle. What the hell else? I've done a few more that I haven't talked about. Well, Yorm kind of looks like the giants from Dark Souls 2, but he's cool. Aldrich looks awesome, and I'll probably have to get into that in my Dark Souls v Dark Souls 3 episode. Now, retains the spirit of the series while delivering something new is something that I wrote, and it definitely has the spirit of the series, like hugely. This game is basically Dark Souls 2 because it's definitely like a direct sequel to Dark Souls. And Dark Souls 2 is kind of like its own thing. I mean, it's still part of the series because there are references in Dark Souls 3 to Dark Souls 2. But, so it retains the spirit of the series. Does it deliver something new? Well, yes and no. Obviously, the entire quest is new, the story is new, there's lots of new characters, lots of new enemies, bosses, all that stuff. Obviously it's new. If it wasn't new, it would be a shitty game. And there's the weapon skills, there's the Ashen Estus flasks, the general speed of the combat, the fluidity of the combat, all that stuff. But there's nothing super new, I guess. It's, you know, you're playing a Souls game, and if you've played Souls games before, you kind of know what you're getting into. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because I really am having more fun with this game than I've had with a lot of games that I've played recently. I'm very, very, very happy with it. About as new as any Souls game, I guess. And another one of my hopes was a challenging but fun Platinum Trophy. I really can't comment on that one because I am not even through my first playthrough. I'm guessing it's going to be a lot of the same, like, I noticed almost all the trophies I've gotten so far are just beating bosses. So it's beat these bosses, I'm guessing upgrade weapons to their fullest potential in all the different categories, probably collect all the spells and pyromancies, miracles, all that stuff, collect all the probably boss weapons, like all that kind of garbage. I don't know how it's going to be, but I am going to get that platinum. This one I really can't comment on because I'm going to have to wait years into the future, but I wrote, might sound strange, but for the sake of freshness of the franchise, I kind of hope it is the last traditional Souls game. Did I say it in the episode 14 or episode 13? Miyazaki had said that this is the last Dark Souls game. What that means for the Souls series overall, I don't know. But this series, Dark Souls, is done with 3. I don't know what that means for Bloodborne. I don't know what that means for any kind of spiritual successor to Dark Souls. But it sounds like they're going to go in different directions with whatever they do with this Souls series. So I can't really say more than that. And my final hope was it will obsess me for months. And it's already been a little over a month, and it definitely has, and it definitely will. No problems about that. It definitely helps also that I have friends at work that also play, so I can talk to them about it. That makes it a lot of fun. Okay, and now I'm going to go over my fears. Where are we at here? Oh, a nice healthy 25 minutes. That's pretty good. This episode is really moving along. I like it. It might be a little bit shorter, but I don't even care. Okay, my fears. I wrote, I never had a fear about the frame rate. That doesn't bother me. I still haven't seen any frame rate problems, as I mentioned, so we'll skip that. I said I fear the fan base will hate it, and they'll treat it like Dark Souls 2. From what I understand, I've read a little bit on Giant Bomb, which is where I go to read my Dark Souls stuff, the general consensus seems to be that everybody loves this game. I don't think I've seen anything negative about this game beyond the biggest negative I seem to see is that it's too easy, and that will probably be its own episode as well. All I'll say on that is, again, yes and no. Some of the bosses have been easy, but it has some of the hardest areas and some of the hardest enemies I've probably ever seen in a Souls game. Plus, I understand that there's an optional boss towards the end that is, some consider, the hardest boss in the entire series. So that should be interesting. So the fan base, I'm pretty sure, does not hate it. How will it stand the test of time? I don't know. I think it's going to stand pretty well. But everyone loves it. And I can't really comment on this either, because again, this will take years. But I said another fear that's not directly about this game is that the Souls name will start to get so big the developers and creators might get a little silly. Because, you know, with the Slashy Souls, they had a comic, the April Fool's video, the pop heads, all this kind of stuff. They are releasing a board game. There's a board game on Kickstarter. I'm going to mention that on episode 14 or 13. I don't fucking know, guys. Too many things. Too much Dark Souls. Well, that's not possible. But there's a Kickstarter for a Dark Souls board game, which sounds awesome, and I actually kind of want to give to it. I've never contributed any money to any Kickstarters. Apparently there's also a Bloodborne board game Kickstarter as well, so I don't know anything about that. But I would possibly contribute money to both those. But again, I can't really say a whole lot because the game just came out a month ago. Now, this says, I hope the covenants are more fleshed out and fun and interactive. I'm not sure about all the covenants. I think there's 8 of them. 3 or 4 of them are old ones that are in the old games, and then the rest of them are new ones. I'm in the Warriors of Sunlight, which is the Sun Bros thing, which I love because I love helping people. I love the co-op. So again, I guess I really can't comment on that. I've done a little bit of reading about the covenants, and a lot of them seem like it's either get summoned into someone's world that's trespassing in a certain area that they're not supposed to be in, a la the Darkroot Garden in Dark Souls 1 when you're in the Cat Covenant. I can't remember the name of it. When you get automatically summoned into someone's world because they're in the forest and they shouldn't be. Or like the Bellkeeper's Covenant from Dark Souls 2 when they're in the Bell area. So it seems like there's a couple that are like that. And there's like the Blue Sentinels, which you get summoned to help someone if they're getting attacked. And the Covenants don't seem amazing. I've never been a huge fan of the Covenants. I think they still have left a lot on the table. I always thought that the Rat Covenant from Dark Souls 2 was really cool. How you could... I mean, that was also kind of the same thing where if people came into the... I don't remember the name of the area, that rat area, you could like kind of set traps for them. It was pretty unfair to the people coming in, but whatever, who cares? I had said something about I'm afraid they might put too much emphasis on the PvP. It seems like it's the exact same amount of emphasis that's been in all the other games. The Covenants might be geared more towards PvP, but everything seems like it's about the same, so I don't have any problems with it. I did also write that I'm afraid the PvP will be laggy. I've only been invaded by a real player, I think once. I've been invaded by an NPC once, and I've been invaded by a real player once. And the lag is definitely there, so that sucks. I know I'm no good at PvP anyway, but the lag really kills me. I was fighting the guy that invaded me. I had him down to probably half his health, and he hit me with some... It was either a backstab or just hit me with a sword from like 10 feet away. So that kind of stuff is just never going to go away. For whatever reason, From just can't get that right. I feel like the original Dark Souls, or even Demon Souls, probably had the best PvP. I'm trying to think. Demon Souls is probably the only one that didn't have lag. I remember when Dark Souls came out, reading all the comments about how people didn't like the PvP because it was too laggy. And I remember how, like, annoyed I was by it. Because, it's fucking PvP, who cares? God, I hate PvP. Everyone loves it, though. So, whatever, that's that. And that was basically it. I said I'm having a tough time trying to figure out legitimate fears for the game. So that's what I wrote, a month ago, 5 weeks ago, whatever. That's all I have in my notes. I'm not going to end it just yet. I will say I have... There's no more fears. There's no fears of this game. This is an amazing game. I'm so pleased with how it came out. They did an amazing job, and they should be congratulated. This is game of the year. It's not gonna win because it's Dark Souls and fucking I don't know what's coming out this year. Oh, Uncharted 4 came out, so that would be a contender. No Man's Sky, which looks fucking awesome, and I can't wait to buy it. That's gonna be a contender. Dark Souls 3 would be in the conversation, but it won't win. At least Fallout 4 came out last year. Right? It came out last year, or did it come out this year? I mean, we're already almost in fucking June, which is silly. Yeah, so I know I'm blown away. It has exceeded my expectations. But there's still things that aren't perfect about it. Besides the boss battles, which I like most of them, some are kind of easy. This is gonna sound like a very niche complaint, but I feel like all the rings I've been finding are really not very good. They're either not very good or they're all geared towards spell users. I have a lot of rings that like boost sorceries or boost like the length of spells or shorten spell casting or like all that kind of stuff. I feel like I have a lot of those rings. I don't have a lot that really bolster your, like, just attack. I have the Ring of Favor, which is awesome. Otherwise, I kind of just have... And I think the Ring of Life, which gives you a little extra HP. Otherwise, I think I just use resistance rings for whatever I need. You have 4 ring slots, and there's nothing good. So that's something that's really been bothering me. And I really feel like there was something else, too, that I find annoying. Once I finish the game, take a little time off, I'm going to do, like, one final... How is Dark Souls 3 and all the good things, all the bad things, which that's kind of what this is. That's not kind of what this is. Actually, that's not anything like what this is. I don't know. There's just it's such a fun game. It's more fun than I've had with a Souls game in a long time. And it is too early to say where it's going to end up on the list of, like, if I ranked all the Souls games, and Bloodborne and Demon Souls, if I ranked all 5 of them, where it's going to end up, I don't know. It's going to be pretty high, I think. I can't wait to keep playing. I'm going to be playing as soon as I stop this recording, which will be in the next, 5 minutes. I'll have a couple hours to play tonight. I do have to go to bed kind of early for work, because I have to wake up at 20 past 4, which sucks. But should get 2.5 hours in tonight before I go to sleep. And, yeah, I don't know what bad there is to say. By the time I finish it, I'll be able to compile probably a bit of a bigger list. I will say, this has nothing to do with the game per se, but the whole Season Pass bullshit, I don't like. There's going to be DLC released late this year and then early 2017, so you can buy the Season Pass. I hate that stuff. I love the DLCs. All the DLCs for the games have been amazing. Bloodborne's DLC was amazing. Hint, hint, that might be an episode coming up very, 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 very soon. The Artorias of the Abyss DLC was amazing. The Sunken Crown DLCs were amazing. So I have no doubt that the DLC for Dark Souls 3 is going to be absolutely amazing. Maybe it's just the phrase Season Pass I don't like. I associate that with all these big giant AAA titles, Uncharted and Destiny and Call of Duty and all that garbage. Garbage I use in the nicest sense possible. So yeah, maybe it's just that phrasing I don't particularly care for. But I think I'm starting to ramble a little bit. So I'm gonna probably shut it down here. This has been a short episode, and that's fine. It's much, much, much better than the one I had recorded that was 40 minutes. That wasn't even done, actually. That was just no good. So I'm going to shut this off in a minute, get it edited. There shouldn't be too much editing to do. I'm going to start playing Dark Souls 3. I will tell you guys, hinted at it a little bit. Next week, and by next week I mean in like 3 days, I'm going to do, for episode 16, I already know what I'm doing, which doesn't usually happen. I'm taking a tiny break from Dark Souls 3. I'm going to talk about the Old Hunters DLC, the Bloodborne DLC. What more current topic in the midst of Dark Souls 3 mania than to talk about the Old Hunters DLC from Bloodborne? That was going to be my second episode of the Solo Soulscast way back in November when the Old Hunters came out, and I recorded it, and it was like probably a good 40 minutes. But again, I didn't like it. It was not good, so I deleted it. This will be much better. I would really like to release 2 episodes this upcoming week to kind of make up for this one being late and then not having one last week. We'll see. I will definitely release episode 16 of the Old Hunters DLC, and we'll go from there. But thanks everyone for being so patient. Thanks for listening. If you guys want to comment on the YouTube comments or comment anywhere else, tell me how shitty this is. That's fine. I can take it because I know it's, we're getting there. We're not at 7 million yet, but we're gonna get there, guys. But let's talk. Let's have discussion. That's part of the reason I do this. I want to talk to Souls fans about Souls. I'm talking to myself right now, which again is fine because I talk to myself a lot without a microphone in front of me. But let's talk Souls. So thanks for listening, and I will see you guys next week. And keep on having fun with Dark Souls 3.